That was a that was a digital person, I'm afraid, who I couldn't seduce into coming into the analog room. Thank you very much. You're analog people. Finally, real people. If you're expecting a technical talk, please leave now to avoid disappointment and avoid giving me a bad score. This will be about, well, it will get more human and human and human as time goes on. It will start with a little bit of an analytical view of organizations, looking at, I'm fascinated by the topic of the IT operating model. People often talk about, I need to improve my IT operating model, but what do they actually mean? So I'd like to decompose that concept so we know what we're talking about, because I think the IT operating model is changing, particularly in the digital enterprise, where IT and business are converging rather than remaining separate entities. I hope you've read my latest motto. I have to think about things in depth before I can talk about them with uncertainty. You know, the more you learn about stuff, the more you realize you don't know enough. So if you catch me talking about anything with apparent certainty, I probably don't know what I'm talking about. You'll also notice I call myself the IT paradigmologist, and I invented the term myself for marketing purposes. A paradigmologist is somebody who studies paradigms. I'm interested in studying the way that we are looking at the IT world. If you take the phenomenon of DevOps, the movement where development and operations are getting closer together, I think that's a great paradigm. I'm interested in these kind of things. Please feel free to get in touch with me, connect on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter, continue this conversation after the event. It'd be great to do. I think two critical questions that you should be asking yourselves, possibly challenging speakers as well with when you come to conferences like these. Really? If you hear me say something, really? Is that true? To challenge that with all this fake news around at the moment, really? And the second question is, so what? How is your life going to improve, or how are you going to improve other people's lives by using the content that you gather at conferences, great conferences like these? So think about those two questions. This is what is advertised on the tin. In the brochure, these 4 takeaways I'd like to explore, how the IT operating model is changing in the digital enterprise. Getting an understanding of the increasing responsibilities of the business as a digital leader. What are your expectations, and what do they need to do to get value out of the equation? I call the talk, It Takes Two to Tango, and we could do a dance here, a tango up here. I wouldn't advise it, but we could do a dance up here. Business and IT dancing together, co-creating value. You can't just throw it over the fence to the business as IT. Is it really a co-creational process? We're talking very briefly on how to talk to business leaders, business executives about IT without confusing them. And finally, doing a quick exploration of what constitutes effective behavior between business people and IT people, and thinking about how do you actually influence behavior. And that's where it gets more into the human part. I'll go through the first part. It's pretty packed with content. I'll be going through the first part, the more analytical part, pretty quickly. I've done a bit of writing on this. So if you're interested in more detail, look at my stuff and you'll find the details, or get in touch with me. I'll send you the links. So look at this first. You'll notice from time to time there's a no photo sign on the slide, but you can take photos of any slides that you like. It's just that when you still see the sign, I'm still in the process of building up a slide. So now you can relax. Now you have the full slide. So if you want to take pictures, this is my modest contribution to the conference community to make you less nervous whenever I get the last slide. I'll be talking about models during the first 5 or 10 minutes. of the talk. I see it's not interesting for. I thought you were going to leave. Sorry. That's fair enough. This is the more boring part, but you might like it from an analytical perspective. I'll be talking about the concept of the IT operating model. What we really mean is, this is our way of working. This is what managers say, our IT operating model, this is how we do stuff. So it represents our way of working. We do this and this and this. It is often based on some kind of architecture, some kind of meta model, some kind of framework which inspires the way that we actually work. Think about the industry guidance that you're familiar with. You've probably incorporated some of that guidance in the way you work. But when you look at reality, it's usually a lot more messy. And that's not a disqualification, it's just that a model is a very, very simple abstract concept. By definition, it reduces the amount of detail to something that you can follow. So, you've got to realize. So I'm talking about an idealized representation of how organizations would like to work. And I'm using this very simplistic way of looking at the world, which took me about 40 years to come up with. This is my 40th year in IT now. You come to conferences like these to get IT industry guidance so you can improve the way you work so that you make better, faster, cheaper information systems that will enable the business to achieve their business goals better. That's what it's all about. And we talk about the business in terms of a business model. They do stuff. And I'd like to introduce the concept of the IT operating model, how we, just saying we in IT, how we in IT do stuff. So let's take a look at the business side first, explode that a little bit. If any of you familiar with this model, it's called the business model canvas. A couple of people nodding their heads. Oh, wow, that's impressive. There's a guy called Andrew Campbell, who I met last year, who's just written a great little book. I'll give you the link to that later on, in which he says, he takes this model and he says there's a front end dealing with customers, there's a middle about the value proposition, the products and services that a company produces, and there's a back end that actually delivers the value, and a financial model underneath. And he says that pretty simplistic way of looking at the back end in terms of activities, resources, and partners to do stuff, Andrew's broken it down into 6 components, which he abbreviates as POLISM: processes, organization, locations, physical locations where you work. I just talked with somebody who said, I work in a fairly small organization where we're all co-located, one place. That often helps. The I for information, the information that businesses need to do their stuff. And POLISM: suppliers that you need, and an underlying management system. That's a very, very easy way of looking at the back end, with the information and information systems that we produce fitting into that little information block there. Take a look at the left-hand side, the IT function, and explode that. Now, what I've done is I've taken Andrew Campbell's model, which is not an IT operating model, but a generic operating model. And I've very simplistically replaced everything by IT. So, and Andrew's cool with this. He's participated in this exercise. And, we have IT processes. We have an IT organization with structure, with people, with skills. We have IT suppliers, locations. We even have IT information that the IT department needs to run itself as a business. Just like the business needs information, the IT, it's sort of a recursive thing. The IT department needs information as well. So this is what I've defined as the IT operating model, and this is the thing we want to improve. Now, how do these two things fit together? Here I've got a representation of the business's operating model, the enterprise operating model. I just want to focus on that operating model part. And the IT operating model, so you can see here IT processes, IT information, stuff like that, providing the information that the business needs. That is typically, that is IT that supports the business, typically organized from a central IT department where the processes within IT and the business are aligned with each other, connected, typically in a demand-supply relationship. You're the business, you're IT. There's some kind of awkward service level agreement between the two that nobody's happy with. Service level agreements are dreadful, very well intended, but very difficult to actually pin down what are the characteristics of the service that people need. And typically, IT adopts the attitude of the order taker. The business wants something, IT says, this is what you want, we'll do it, and if it goes wrong, we can blame you because that's what you asked for. That's the subservient order taker role. If, however, IT is part of the business that you do, or even part of the product that you offer, then we're moving more into the digital enterprise, whatever that may be. You know, what's the difference between a digital enterprise and an analog enterprise? It's not really firmly defined. But if IT is really crucial for your activities, if you're in the digital business, and increasingly we are, then we're talking more about convergence. We're talking about digital business, convergence of business and IT together. The value streams have merged into each other. IT has moved from being a subservient order taker to being just a regular co-worker, often reporting to the same management line, so you don't have conflicts at the silos in organizations and corporate politics separating you, and you're really co-creating value. And even that, just as a very simple example, your business, I'm IT. You're IT, right? You're IT. So I'm the subservient IT order taker. I'm opposite you. If I suddenly become your colleague, sitting next to you, focusing on the common goals, just that physical process of sitting next to each other, facing in the same direction, that is a major change. Seriously, that is a major change. And just adopting that attitude, that really makes a difference. That's a major mindset. It's easily said on a slide, but that is a major, major shift. So you could look at the digital operating model as being a convergence of those two, talking about digital processes, digital supplies, and so on. However, you wouldn't want to decentralize all of IT to the various lines of business. You'd still have some centralized stuff. Take a trivial example, email, for instance. It wouldn't make sense to decentralize that to your various lines of business. So part you keep centralized, part you converge. And of course, you should discuss what is really crucial for our digital business. I would say you should decentralize that to the business. So there are some thoughts on the IT operating model and how it's changing in the digital enterprise. A great book by Andrew Campbell, which you can buy. Wonderful book, but he's got lots of free stuff on operatingmodelcanvas.com. I know the book pretty well because I was one of the minor contributing authors. Great stuff. I'm a member of the Open Group, the standards organization that you might know from TOGAF, the architecture framework. They also have an IT for IT forum, and I'm part of that. And with Andrew Campbell and with Mike Fulton, we've written a white paper on defining the IT operating model with more of these thoughts on what is an IT operating model. As the Open Group, we want to give the industry a definition of what is an IT operating model. You can find that. It's free of charge. You'll just have to register. Just create an account for yourself with that link up there. You get the thing. And otherwise, send me a link and send me a note, and I'll send you the details. Now, second part, understanding how. I often say IT is too important to leave to IT. Increasingly, IT is too important to leave to IT. The business is realizing we have a stake in this. We have to be more involved. But what does the business actually have to do? So we're going to take a look at that, at the business model, the various lines of business. and think about what are the business's responsibilities, what are their concerns. I'm just going to pick. I'm sorry for all the text here, but it's more or less a summary of the kind of things that business people think about. How much should we be investing in IT, for instance, as opposed to acquiring other companies or buildings or machinery or people? What is a do you know, for your company, do you know how much of your total business costs are spent on IT? That is the most frequent answer that I doesn't know. Lots of people don't. I think you should know. You should have a feel. Does anybody know? I don't want you to share that with me. Yeah, is that something that you could share with us, or is it confidential? I'm happy with both. Sorry, confidential. Okay, just take an example. I asked the question in Berlin, and a guy worked at Air Canada. He said, "I know, we spend 1.5% on IT. We spend 40% on fuel." Just to put things in proportion, 1.5% is low. Typically, I spoke to a couple of people in the financial services industry here, 15, 20% would be a more typical percentage. You've got to realize how significant is IT. But so how much should we be spending on IT? What kind of investment should we be making? How can we delegate that stuff to those difficult IT people? How can we organize the user department so that it can use the systems when they arrive? How do I ensure that the users actually get value? You just think about the users that you know. How effectively do you think they use the information systems that they have? Are they getting the value out of them? Often they're not. Really, I think there's surprisingly little academic research on this topic. I think there's a lot of business productivity lost due to people either not being educated, not being motivated to use information systems properly. And the final point is more about governance. If you're a business executive, information and technology are really valuable business assets for you. Can you demonstrate as a business leader to your higher management that you've got it under control? Valuable stuff, this. So these are the concerns. I'm a self-employed IT management consultant, but I work as an ambassador for a not-for-profit foundation, the ASL-BSL Foundation, and this BSL stuff, these practices that we've gathered. Oh, that scared me. The practices that we've gathered are about the kind of things that business people do in order to, just going back to this list, to help them with these kind of things. Do you have owners in the business? We talked about this briefly beforehand. Are there owners for information and the information systems? Do you have value realization? Do you not only have super users that people can turn to if they have a problem, but do you have, I like to call them super duper users, who are proactively looking at how the users are using the systems and whether they could get more value out of them? I'm not going to go through this. I'm just leaving this in the slide deck for future reference. These are the topics that we think in our foundation you should be thinking about from the business perspective. So that's just in the slide deck. Take a look at our website or send me an email and I'll send you more stuff on this free of charge. So that was the role of the business leader. I'm hurrying to get onto the behaviour part because that's fun. But how do you talk to IT about business? So how do you talk to business executives about IT without confusing them? For the sake of time, I'd like to refer you to the talk I did yesterday that was called Kill DevOps, because I spent a little time on that, exploring DevOps from a business value perspective. And the guy up there taking a picture of me, so this is the picture of me taking a picture of him. And on the screen, there's a picture in the Netherlands, within the picture, a picture of Riga and Dublin and Vienna. And if you just a couple of pixels, there's Shanghai in there somewhere. So I'm taking pictures of pictures of pictures of pictures here. So take a look at the recording of that talk if you want to know more about the topic of communicating stuff to business executives. But basically, it's understanding about the information systems, the fitness for purpose and the fitness for use of the systems that you make, the speed and priority of delivery and the cost, and translating that into terms like quicker time to market, fewer costly business disruptions. This is the kind of MBA speak, business terminology that you should be thinking about. I've also done some writing on that stuff as well, so if you're interested, look it up or send me a question. I'll refer you to that. This has been a problem for ages, the communication between business and IT, for decades and decades. And it's like the men are from Mars and women are from Venus, completely different planets, trying to communicate with each other and going to the marriage counsellor to get it sorted out. And rightly so. But of course, you know, let's face it, IT is weird. IT people are weird. Just ask your wife or ask your partner. We're weird. My wife often, I introduce an IT colleague to her, and after she's very polite, but afterwards she says, "Mark, don't you know any normal people?" So what do you think? What do business people? Well, you know, you are business, but what do you think about business people, about IT people? You've always been, yeah, but how can it take so much time? Yeah, so they're too slow. So what else? IT people. Don't hold back. You're just shaking your head. Don't listen to us. They don't listen to us. What else? Do a bit of self-reflection. Chastise yourself. All the bad things, your bad characteristics. Come on. What are they doing all the time? They're bureaucratic and slow. They speak in technobabble. We can't understand them, all those abbreviations. They think they know what they want, but they don't have a clue what we need. And when you have a problem, despite the way that the service desk is attractively portrayed, you know, my blood pressure starts to rise because this is what you fear. People will make you feel stupid. This is, of course, stereotypical, but there's a grain of truth in here. This is what business people think about IT people. But of course, the other way around is true as well. So, what do IT people think about business people? You're a very talkative crowd. They don't listen. Don't understand. Don't know what they want. Don't know what they want. Always changing their minds. They won't take responsibility. Yeah, hang up. Wait for the. There's still no photos. It's still not done yet. Not done. Just wait. They blame. It's simply not fair. They blame us for everything. Because this is. I think this. I hope you can read this. Business and IT toilets in the woods. There. This is just a metaphor how things are organised. Got to live. You know. Got to live with this. So very stereotypical. You are such a talkative crowd, but I'm afraid we don't really have time to do a little exercise, which I have done often in the past. I've done this 17 times now. I did it Tuesday in Germany, in Cologne for the last time. Dividing, and this is something you could do in your work environment. What I could do if we had time, I divide you up into two. You're IT, you're the business. I divide you up into little discussion groups and get you to think for about 15 minutes about IT. What kind of behavior would you like to see from those business people to create more effective collaboration? Other way around, business people, what kind of behavior would you like to see from those techies in order to collaborate more effectively. And this is a summary of all of these sessions I've had, getting the main point. I'm not going to go through all of them, just picking on one or two. Business people should not ask for solutions, not tell IT, I want this application, but say, I want to achieve these outcomes, and trust IT to come up with some options. The T word is very important, trust. The business should understand IT's limitations, for instance. You can't expect the Apple experience from corporate IT. It's just not financially possible. So you've got to realize mutual understanding. On the other hand, IT has got to understand the business and IT's impact on the business. Talk in terms of benefits, costs, and risks, instead of all this technical IT babble that they don't understand. So this is something you could do. This is a great excuse to get the business and IT to the same table to discuss this stuff. Or just the last one, never say no. Say, yes, we can do it under these conditions, and give the business the option of saying yes or no, because otherwise they feel offside, and that's not fair. Have you come across the concept of business relationship management? Nobody? It's something that I encounter a lot in the IT service management world, gaining interest. The IT department appointing a business relationship manager, sort of an account manager, who maintains the relationship with the various lines of business that they serve. My point is, you don't only need a business relationship manager in the IT department, you also need an IT relationship manager in the business in order to dance the tango. So you need those two things. So particularly for the business, you need somebody who takes responsibility for that relationship. Spending about 10 minutes of the rest of the presentation on thinking about behaviour. Behaviour, of course, generates results. You only achieve results when you do things. What drives behaviour? And I've been thinking about this a lot and reading up on it, and I think behaviour is driven both by external factors and by internal factors. The environment, the outside environment, but also the inner environment is a term. I thought that I'd invented it myself, but somebody else had invented it before me. The environment, things like not only your abilities to do stuff, but how do you feel, your emotions, your values, the beliefs, your belief system, the things that really strongly influence how you behave. But how can you influence those? So I'd just like to play around a little bit with emotions and values. We're not going to do anything scary, but just think for a moment at 10 to 12 in the morning, on your energy level, do you feel fairly high energy, or is your energy flagging? I don't want to know where you are, but just reflect on this. How do you feel at the moment, energy level wise? And are you in a negative space, or are you in a positive space? And just realize that will change during the day. Be conscious not only of your own energy level, how you feel, but other people's as well. It's such a simple thing here. A great little exercise to think about. How do you feel at the moment? You could do it with the team. Where are we at the moment? Just check in with each other. Another thing on the emotional side is, can you read emotions if you see faces? This is somebody from a completely different culture than our culture here. What do you think his face represents? Anger, sadness, disgust, happiness, fear? Happiness. Friend, he was asked to think about sentences like these. Friends have come. And this was his reaction. What about this face? Sadness. A child had died. Anger, about to fight. Stepped on a smelly dead pig. It's interesting, isn't it? Are emotions universal? Maybe you assume something when you see somebody's face, but you might be thinking about something completely different. So that's something to be aware of. If you'd like to learn more about develop your emotional vocabulary, Paul Ekman has developed an atlas of emotions, which is free of charge. It's good to, particularly if you're in a technical kind of role and you're possibly not that familiar with talking about emotions. This is something that will hopefully help you. Paul Ekman is supported by the Dalai Lama. Speaking of which, if you had the opportunity to ask the Dalai Lama a question, what would it be? This is your opportunity. He will give you an answer. Possibly not to your question, but the question that an Australian journalist asked the Dalai Lama was, Dalai Lama, what is the meaning of life? Do that again. Right. Once more with feeling. Yeah, sorry about the sound quality, but I think you got the message. The two words that really triggered me very deeply. This is about 12 years ago. Happiness and usefulness, values. I'm not a religious person, but I've adopted those two values, happiness and usefulness, as things that drive my behavior. I will make conscious life decisions, personal and business-wise, based on, is this going to make me happy, or is this going to make me useful for family, friends, community, colleagues? So here you've got a personal example of how if you appeal to my values, then you'll get me behave. Then that will influence my behavior. So understanding my values, really crucial. That you get to know each other, understand what people really find important. That will help you in achieving the kind of behavior you want to achieve. And there's a reference to, the last bit is pretty good, the very existence of our life is surely not for trouble, not for suffering. There's a Buddhist saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So in life, things happen, but it's to a degree, it's up to you whether you take that in a positive or a negative way. Speaking of suffering, this is one of the greatest pictures I've come across in ages. It says, look at that lady there and the three orang-utans sulking. They're clearly having a bad day. And look around you every day, you will see people having a bad day. And the question that fascinates me is, why on earth do people suffer? Why do they have a bad day? And I've come up with three I think plausible reasons. Some people sulk because they want sympathy, they want attention. Oh, you poor thing, what's wrong with you? They want a pat on the head, what's comforting. And that is actually a very nasty way of dominating the environment by sitting in a corner sulking. That's quite a negative way of influencing your environment. Another thing that people do, often they're in a bad mood because it's a good excuse to avoid responsibility. They're in a bad mood. I missed the bus and I was late. No, you didn't. You got up too late. You're avoiding the responsibility of preparing for. People use that to avoid responsibility. Complaining about things, being negative. And finally, there's a great deal of satisfaction from being right and being annoyed that people don't do things the way that you would do it. For instance, what is the right way to hang up a roll of toilet paper? Is it with the flap on the outside or the flap on the... I'll just do a straw poll here. Who says flap on the outside? And flap on the inside? Oh, yeah, good. Yeah, this is a very extreme... Usually it's about 80-20, maybe 90-10. This is very extreme. My wife, by the way, is flap on the inside, so I think you get on very well with my wife. And she is so passionate about being right that she systematically reverses all rolls of toilet paper that are hung up the wrong way. And I say hung up the wrong way because if you go back to the patent, when this was invented, it was clearly intended with a flap on the outside. So if you want the... Yeah, that's right. If you want to win the argument, if you want to be right and have a bad day because everybody's hanging up the roll of toilet paper on the inside, you got the evidence. So that's that. Who's come across Dan Pink and his autonomy, mastery, and purpose thing? The book Drive? A couple of people. It's a great message. Have a look at the YouTube video RSA Drive Dan Pink. It takes about 15 minutes and it gives you the story behind the book. Basically, he states that your personal satisfaction and effectiveness at work are influenced strongly by autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is the degree of freedom that you have to take your own decisions. And the question is that scary if I give you the responsibility to take your own decisions, or do you find that empowering? Depends on the amount of autonomy, so you have to be conscious about how much autonomy should you give people. Mastery is certainly for technical people, the pleasure of doing stuff better and better and better and better. That really gives you a kick to master your profession. And finally is the old story of the three stone cutters that I'm sure some of you have heard of. Guy comes across three stone. We've got 3 stone cutters on the front row here, and he asks the first one, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm earning a living." So that's the first stone cutter, just earning. It's just a job, stone cutting. So he goes on to the second one, and he says, "What are you doing?" And so I'm trying to be the best stone cutter in Sweden. And then the final one, he looks off. I ask you the same question. That you look off in the distance and you say, "I'm building a cathedral." And there you've got that purpose. Somebody whose values are really strongly connected with the values of your, put it in a business context, of your enterprise. You're doing good things for society. You're not creating guns, but you're curing cancer. So you've got that strong connection, that sense of purpose. So with that, thank you very much for being such an engaging audience. And go build cathedrals. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.